So we're going to continue Hilchos Mikvaot, Siman Reish Aleph. We're holding Sif Mem Dalet, and we're going to be going all the way to, hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, still Sif Mem Tes. These Seifim have to do with the concept of Hamshacha. There are situations where a mikveh cannot be built in the ideal way. That is, that the waters come directly from the rain, flow into the mikveh, and you have at least Mem Sa'o Mayim Ksherim. That would be the ideal situation. In other words, we're not talking now about the construction of the mikveh. The mikveh is constructed properly, but the way the waters enter the mikveh is important. It can't be Mayim She'uvim. It can't be waters that were drawn involving human intervention. There's also a problem with Haviyosan, Alim Dovasha Mekabel Tumo, that we've seen before and we'll go over again, that it cannot be formed, initially at least, through something that is Mekabel Tuma. That cannot be a part in the Haviyosan, in other words, in the formation of the mikveh. However, there are other methods of koshering the mikveh, or I should say making a mikveh a kosher mikveh, even though it is not directly coming from the skies. Places where there is not enough rain, and we spoke briefly about the possibility of using snow, using ice, and there's also the possibility of hamshacha that can come in handy at times. Hamshacha basically means that we're dealing with mayim she'uvim, drawn waters, but they do not directly spill into the mikveh, but somehow are flowing on the ground. At least one way is for them to flow on the ground, directly from the kli to the mikveh. In other words, they don't go from the kli to the mikveh by way of the air, in other words, by spilling directly from the bucket into the mikveh, but they go through the ground. And we will talk about what that distance needs to be a little bit later. But so that's what Hamshacha is. Hamshacha meaning that the waters are being drawn, even though they start off as Mayim She'uvim, but it's not in a direct way, going from the kli to the mikveh, but in an indirect way, I guess you can call it that they fall onto something else. I used an example of the ground, and we will see other possibilities as well. And these halachas, from Mem Daled till Mem Tes, discuss the concept of Hamshacha. The Mekor, the source of Hamshacha, is in the Mishnah, in Mikvaot in Perik Daled, where the discussion revolves around Mayim She'uvim and Mei Geshamim that somehow got mixed up in a chotzer before they float to the mikveh. So there's a lot of discussion on exactly what the Mishnah is saying and how do you interpret the circumstances in which the waters eventually came to the mikveh. But the basic halacha, to which I think pretty much all the poskim agree to, all the Rishonim, is that in order for the waters to be kosher through Hamshacha, there's a need to have roiv mayim have been ksherim. So from 40 sa'ah you have 20 plus a mashuhu. Then you can have the remainder coming as a result of Hamshacha. So if the roiv mayim are ksherim, in other words they make geshamim, then it's kosher if the rest are she'uvim that are coming by Hamshacha. But in no way do we say that the whole mikveh can be made through Hamshacha. But that's a machlekes. I'm just letting you know what the halacha is and how we hold, but in reality there is a machlekes even on this aspect, on this nekuda. Can you make the entire mikveh through she'uvim that came about through Hamshacha? But at the very least we do know that if you have a good amount of mayim ksherim, you will not be running into the problem of gimel lugim that will passel the mikveh. Because even if you have more than gimel lugim coming by Hamshacha, that is more than gimel lugim she'uvim, that would still be okay, as long as the first condition is met, and that is that the roiv of the mayim in this mikveh are mayim ksherim. So what do we see so far? We see that in reality you have two conditions if you want to employ Hamshacha. It's not just Hamshacha, it's also Reviyah. Reviyah means the majority. the majority of the waters, and according to most poskim, have to have been there already in the mikveh, not that they came after the fact. The mayim ksherim, the roiv, the reviyah, has to be there in place already. And then if you have to complete the mikveh an additional 19 se'ah plus something more, then if that comes about through hamshacha, that would be okay. So I don't think it's really necessary to get into all the shitas, the rishonim, how they hold. I'm just going to go through the basic concept over here, that we're assuming that we need right now the two. We need reviyah and we need hamshacha. So to properly understand this, perhaps it would be a good idea to explain what each one does. What does the reviyah accomplish? What does the hamshacha accomplish? Because in reality, it's strange that you would need the two. I mean, after all, if hamshacha is something so special, something so effective, that it cancels out or neutralizes the mayim she'uvim and transforms them to no longer mayim she'uvim, then why not have the whole mikveh being made through hamshacha? In other words, what does hamshacha really accomplish? Is it really transforming the she'uvim? If it is, then the question is, then why not make the whole mikveh out of hamshacha? Apparently there's a need here for reviyah. There's a need here for the majority of mayim ksherim as well. Now, hamshacha by itself, what it does accomplish is that it somehow brings about a mikveh here being made alidei shamayim. That's what it brings about here, because the mikveh really should be like a mayon, as we learned before. It should be like a spring, just like a spring is mishamayim by itself. It's not man-made. So a mikveh too, the waters contained in the mikveh should be alidei shamayim. So here the hamshacha coming by way of the ground, let's say, and then entering the mikveh, it's like it's happening alidei shamayim, which is really the main condition for the kashrus of the tevilah, that this water should be as though, as close as possible to coming from shamayim. But we said that this hamshacha somehow by itself is not enough. It also needs reviyah, which means the majority. That hamshacha would only help the niyut. It would only help the remaining water. They can come through hamshacha if it's she'uvim. So why do we need both? Why do we need a combination of reviyah and hamshacha? Some explain, I've seen this in several poskim that discuss this issue, and they seem to explain that in she'uvim there's really two dinim. One din has to do with the status of the water, that says that mayim she'uvim are pasol for tevilah. There's a second din that applies to the makom tevilah, to where you immerse. And that says that a mikveh that's not formed bidei shamayim is pasol. Okay, the reviyah, therefore, the majority of the kosher water, resolves only one problem, or one of the conditions, and that is the problem of the water. We have here mayim she'uvim, some of it at least. Well, we're very familiar with the concept of bittul beroiv. So when you have reviyah, when you have the majority, you have this concept of bittul beroiv. So reviyah can handle the status of the water being mayim she'uvim. We don't want them to be mayim she'uvim, so reviyah can take care of that problem. But reviyah by itself does not take care or does not resolve the problem of how the mikveh is formed, which is basically a kosher mikveh only if it contains 40 se'ah mayim ksherim, which, as we said before, ideally is come about through water from shamayim. Therefore, if a portion of that water did not come from shamayim, you cannot consider this mikveh, this mokum tvila, as a place that's been formed from Shamayim. Hamshacha therefore resolves this problem. Hamshacha does not resolve the problem of the Maim She'uvim. The status of the water is resolved through bitul, through reviyah. Hamshacha therefore takes care of the other problem, that it transforms this situation, this mikveh that should be mishamayim, as though it is mishamayim. I haven't explained how exactly that happens, which we'll do soon, but perhaps each one takes care of a separate problem.
The problem with bittul
Right.
is that we had before.
Right.
Bittul did not help.
Exactly.
For shuv.
Right now. Yeah, but we never explained why not.
No. But under a normal case,
You're 100% right.
even 3 muk,
Exactly.
which is much less than 19 saw.
Exactly. Very
So
good
why
point.
should
Yeah.
reviyah work here when it doesn't work there?
Right. So that's what we're coming.
Even for bittul.
That's exactly what we're headed towards.
Okay.
We're headed towards understanding how does Hamshacha resolve this problem of Maim She'uvim in a very unique way. So what we're seeing so far, it's not only Hamshacha. You do also need Reviyah. Now, there are some that say Hamshacha is so powerful, and we'll see why soon, that you can make the whole mikveh through Hamshacha. Because Hamshacha basically cancels the problem of Maim She'uvim for some reason. We don't know that. We don't know yet why. But if we go with the Shita, that Hamshacha of the entire mikveh, She'uvim Shimshechu Kula, is not good, it's not good enough, what else do you need? You need something called Reviyah. You need the majority. So you need to have already had a little over 20 se'ah of Maim Ksherim, then the remainder portion of Maim She'uvim, if they come about, if they flow to the mikveh b'derech hamshacha, then it would be okay. In other words, that's how we can understand the Mishnah. Right? There's a whole discussion of how to understand properly the Mishnah and what are the circumstances where we will allow something like that. So I'm just summarizing it. As far as we're concerned, that's what we're going to need. The question is, why the two? So this is one explanation, that each aspect or each concept, Hamshacha and Reviyah, takes care of a separate problem. The Reviyah takes care of the status of the water through the concept of Bitul, or the concept of majority. And Hamshacha takes care of the concept where you need this to be formed Mishamayim. This is not really Mishamayim if there's human intervention involved here. Yes, but if there was Hamshacha, it corrects it. It is as though this Mokum Tefillah contains water that came Mishamayim. Therefore, you need the two ideas. In other words, not Hamshacha by itself only, but also Reviyah, where you have over 20 se'ah of Maim Ksherim to begin with. Now, why does Hamshacha help? I mean, what is there in Hamshacha that makes it so special? Just because I poured it? So I saw that the Mordechai brings down, B'Shem the Yereim, that when the waters come down on the ground before they flow into the mikveh, they are coming agav karka. They're coming agav karka, and therefore it's like they're coming from the ground. They're no longer coming from a keli. They're coming from the ground directly. By being poured on the ground, they basically come out from the ground. Well, if this is the way we understand it, it's important therefore that this karka be, what's the word for it, when the water seeps in, it percolates, that this ground be porous. That's the word. If it's not porous, then it's more like a keli, not like the ground. In other words, in explaining Hamshacha Agav Karka, where the waters are now coming like they came out from the ground, for that to be understood that way, that it's coming from the ground, that karka would have to be porous. Re'uya livloya, as the poskim say, that it can absorb, even though it's not absorbing too much as it's flowing through, but it can absorb. Now, the Ravid is one of those that hold that it doesn't have to be karka re'uya livloya. So how would he understand why Hamshacha helps? Because he would say imshichu gabe karka, if the Hamshacha happened to come by way of the karka, there was the whole concept of she'uvim was somehow nisbato. The karka somehow eliminated the problem of she'uvim. Okay. But what's interesting is that according to the Rambam and others who hold like him, that you can even be mamshecher on top of kelim as long as it's not kelim that are mekabel tuma. As long as it's not kelim that are going to also cause it to be she'uvim. It was just on the surface perhaps. Then this idea of karka does not really apply. So what's going to be the explanation of why Hamshacha should help? Because perhaps the whole idea of she'uvim is the Rabbanan according to some. So if it's the Rabbanan, they were not poisel unless they came directly from a keli. But if it's not directly from a keli, then we would say that it's okay. So depending how you hold, as you can see, there's various shitas. The explanation may be a little bit different.
For the one who holds that it has to be porous,
Yeah.
would he permit it to go over, let's say, wood, which could absorb?
Yes.
As opposed to being actually having to be karka.
Yeah.
Could it be something else?
Yes, we will see. We will see later on in the Mechaber different kinds of circumstances of where the water is being transported or traveling through. And we've seen this a little bit before, that if something even closely resembles a keli, it would make a big difference if it was first attached to the ground and not detached. Because then it becomes a part of the ground. Well, once something becomes a part of the ground, it could even be made of almost of any material then, because it's nisbatel. As long as it did not have the shape of a container before, in other words, it did not have the form of a keli, even though later on you are making it, giving it a shape of a canal or whatever, that may be okay if it's connected to the ground, because something that is already part of the ground is like the ground, and the material would not matter so much anymore. But materials are important. In constructing a mikveh, we need to be concerned about things that are mekabel tuma, and then the question arises, well, what about rubber and plastic? And according to quite a few poskim, those are not mekabel tuma. We have a list of things that are mekabel tuma, and materials that are mekabel, and they may not be included in that list, apparently. I mean, they're not specified as such. So we strive, of course, to make the mikveh as good as possible, to be yotze according to all the shittas who are machmir, and there are quite a few chumras. So we try to make it in any way possible that satisfies all the requirements if possible. And there are some mikvahs built like that. They pretty much satisfy just about all the requirements. But it's more expensive. So that's the question is, what is the bare minimum? So before we see the mechaber inside, the additional machlekasim or issues that need to be clarified is what we just saw is imshechua kula. In other words, she'uva she'imshechua kula, is that okay, or is it only a part of it? So that we said is a machlekes. If you can make a mikveh entirely by hamshacha, the Rambam, the She'iltas, the Rosh, and others hold that if it's a completely she'uva she'imshechua kula, it's psula. So they are the ones that hold that she'uva is metaheres only through the two, reviya and hamshacha. So these are the Rishonim that hold that you need the two. The Chachmei Amar of the Rif, at least according to the way the Ramban, the Rashban, the Ran learn what he says, the Rash, they hold a she'uva shimshechu kol kshera. So as we said earlier, there is a machlokes in that. But if you learn the Mechaber, you see that the Mechaber clearly says that you need the two conditions, not just hamshacha, but you need reviyah. As far as the reviyah and hamshacha, there can be various circumstances, various possibilities, various options. You can have, for example, the standard situation where you first have the initial 20 se'ah and mashu of mayim ksherim. Then the additional waters came through hamshacha, in other words, the 19 plus some extra, and they completed the 40 se'ah. That's one type of possibility, that's one option, and that is pretty much the easy one. That's kosher. You have something that is more what the Mishnah discusses, the example in the Mishnah, where you have them all mixed together from before they arrive to the mikveh. So in the chotzer, in the yard, you have through the canal a mixing happening of the megeshomim together with the she'uvim, going together by hamshacha to the mikveh. So if you have roiv, again, you have the roiv of the mayim ksherim, then it's kosher. The question is, does it have to be like that or not? And the Mechaber doesn't mention that. It's sufficient that it's already, you have the mayim ksherim inside the mikveh, and the rest is coming by hamshacha. Not that they got mixed in together at the same time from before. But that is a possibility. That is another scenario where you still would require roiv of the mayim ksherim mixing in with the rest of them. The rest of the mayim psulim or the mayim she'uvim that are coming by hamshacha. However, what happens if you have the 19 plus mashu coming first? That's where it becomes more of a problem, or more complicated. When the 19, in other words, the mayim she'uvim that came through hamshacha, they were there first, and then you have the 20 plus or 21, according to others, of mayim she'uvim coming later. Beis Yosef says on this that the Rambam was not machshir this kind of a scenario. It's only the other way, where the mayim ksherim were there first, or at least not this one. At least not this one. In other words, this one where you have the mayim she'uvim coming by hamshacha, if they come first, then it's no good. Think of it as similar to gimel prior to having 40 se'ah. I saw that Taz, he writes something very interesting. The Taz brings down the Tur says that in Ein Bo Elo Chof Soim, if all it has is 20 se'im, in other words, it doesn't have 20 plus something extra, V'shoav Chof Se'im, and then he brought in 20 se'im she'uvim, Afilo Lidem Shachol, it's possible. 20 is possible. You have to have 20 plus extra of mayim ksherim. What's interesting about this psul is that nire, barur, the psul ze have kemo pisul she'iva, that this kind of psul would also be similar to the pisul of she'iva that we learned before, that in noflu gimel lugim she'uvim, before you have 40 se'ah, ein takona rak acher sheyetzu harishonim, you would have to remove all the waters. The first waters are there. In other words, they passel the whole thing. So, if he tells you it's possible, it's not only possible, it's telling you would have to remove it. It wouldn't be any better. On the contrary, you have more than gimel.
You would have to remove just the shuvin? Do you realize
No, the whole thing. Basically the whole thing. Yeah. So that's the significance of this kind of a scenario where if the she'uvim were there first, it wouldn't work, even though they came through hamshacha. So we're saying hamshacha is good. Yeah, hamshacha is good. Reviyah is important together with hamshacha. But if the miut, we're talking about the minority here, the miut she'uvim were there first, then it won't work. In other words, we're pretty much, perhaps you could say it this way, adding an additional condition. Not only reviyah and hamshacha, but the reviyah has to be there first. The majority of the mayim ksherim have to be there first. And the Ramah is going to talk about this. So if you had, as we said from the Taz, if you had 20 se'ah she'uvim that were brought about by Hamshacha, and afterwards, even if you had 40 se'ah fall in, based on what we just saw from the Taz, he would passel this too. But what's interesting is that there is a Hagoy's Rabbi Elyahu here that brings down from Tosfos somewhere that if you would put 40 se'ah ksherim, it would be kosher. Remember, we're not talking about real Maim She'uvim that are possible. We're talking about Maim She'uvim that came BeHamshacha. It's in a semi-state of almost kosher, but not good enough. So, according to one opinion at least, if on the Yud Tes Se'ah, Maim She'uvim, but came about through Hamshacha, if on top of that you throw 40 Se'ah Maim Ksherim, which is the real amount of a mikvah, kosher mikvah, that would kasher it. Really very interesting. Based on the Taz, it doesn't seem like it would work. Mm-hmm. But Rabbi Elyahu says, yeah, in this kind of a situation where the she'uvim came about from Hamshacha, of course they're there first and it's going to be a problem. Okay, but if on top of that you threw in 40 se'ah, not just 21, 40 complete se'ah, then that would be acceptable. The Shach, interestingly here, brings a Bach. The idea behind Reviyah, Mayim Kshedim, that you need Reviyah on top of Hamshacha, is only when the Hamshacha was Bechavana. A very interesting Bach. When he actually purposefully intended for those waters to travel Behamshacha to the mikveh, so then you need Reviyah. But if somehow you had Hamshacha without Kavanah, even if all of it was Behamshacha, it would be kosher. Now this is very interesting because there is a Shitas Aravid that we're not necessarily here talking about real she'uvim, because with real she'uvim, even if it's not bekavana, you would always need roiv megeshamim. But we're talking about a psul that comes about bidei odom. In other words, bidei odom, there was human intervention. On this, the Ravid writes that it would be kosher afilu kulo behamshacha. In other words, there is that possibility, and this is important to know, that there are some opinions that would allow kulo behamshacha under certain circumstances. Either there was no kavana, or bidei odom, according to the Ravid. No, not real maim she'uvim. All right.
Why would we care about kavanah if the water has a status without kavanah?
It helps the hamshacha even better. It's an interesting idea. Not everybody talks about this differentiation, but apparently it could be better if this hamshacha came about somehow by itself, as opposed to actually directing it this way. So somehow, this could make a difference with city water. You know, when you're not really bringing it about in a direct manner, you're just opening up a faucet. You're letting it flow, or you're removing a plug between two mikvois. We will see that all of this makes a difference. Even though in removing a plug, we're talking much more about hashaka, connecting mikvois, which is a different idea. Still, there's less involvement. And actually, in speaking about less involvement, Rabbi Elyahu does bring down that if you have a guma next to a mikveh, a guma is like a little pit next to a mikveh, and all you do is somehow unplug the hole between the two, and the water just flows in, that will be better than hamshacha traveling. Because our next question will be, okay, hamshacha, how much of a distance do you need? A mile? And we're going to see that Mechaber goes with the sheet of 3 tfachim. On that, I think Rabbi Elyahu says, well, I have a better scenario that you don't even need the 3 tfachim, even if it's less of a distance. If you have a guma, in other words, the waters have nahu. When do you need tfachim? When do you need distance? When it's traveling, the water is flowing. But if the water is not flowing, it's just sitting. And all you got to do is unplug somehow the connection between the two, and the water will just flow in. Then you don't even need 3 tfachim. So that will be even a better situation where you have a hamshacha, of course. It is a hamshacha, but it's a hamshacha that does not require that much distance.
So then, why would I not put a tap right over the guma?
Yeah, that's what Rabbi Elyahu suggests. If you have such a situation,
build a mikveh.
Yes.
Okay, with the guma next to it, right?
Right.
And some plug or whatever.
Right.
So the water, and I can fill that guma with shuvim. I can fill it with literally out of a bucket.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. That's what happens in certain situations where you have 2 boiras, in connecting the 2 of them.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So then,
that is definitely a possibility.
And if you do that, and since he says you can do,
remember before you go on.
We allow 40.
But remember before you go on. What's the ideal situation?
No ideal.
You have men say, you don't want to do this.
No.
You don't want to build a mikveh through hamshacha.
The question is if you have places where you don't have natural.
Right.
Right. You're in a desert somewhere.
Right.
But you have water that can be transported to it by pipes.
Sure.
Okay?
Exactly, by pipes. City water even.
City water comes in and you build a guma next to your mikveh.
Right.
You can have that city water flow directly into
a guma. Yeah.
And the whole mikveh could be filled from the guma.
Well, you're not going to do a whole mikveh by hamshacha, remember?
There was opinions before.
You're right.
You got situations where you
can. Yes. If that would be the only case, sometimes you may have to rely on that, even though we don't hold like that. We don't hold that kula, all of it is kosher. You would need the majority, but it's important to know that there are such opinions. Yeah. So as far as the distance, how much of a distance does hamshacha need? Those that require 3 tefachim, I think the Rivash holds that kol shehu is enough. You don't need 3 tefachim. We'll see that Mechaber holds 3 tefachim. But that Chazon Ish is a very interesting concept. The water is settled in a guma close to the mikveh. Then somehow you connect it to the mikveh, that would be sufficient, and you would not need 3 tefachim. Okay, before we see all the seifim inside, we have at least one more idea to cover, and that is the actual hamshacha al gabi karka. So we said before that hamshacha, for what we know so far, is supposed to happen on the ground. Somehow the ground takes care of the problem of she'uvim, or as we explained it when you in making the 2 requirements, Reviya and hamshacha, that hamshacha somehow makes it more appear like it's mishamayim. Either way, the hamshacha is correcting the problem of this maim she'uvim in a sense. I just differentiated it before because here we have these 2 requirements of Reviya and hamshacha, and each one appears to be taking care of a separate problem. But either way, if it's flowing al gabi karka, it resolves this problem. Is that okay then if it would flow al gabi a pipe? In other words, what's this? Is karka really a necessity? And we said yes, it has to be pretty much the ground. It cannot be in a keli, because then the keli, if it's a real keli, it would not solve anything. It's not so much the flowing. It cannot be in a keli. Otherwise the keli makes water she'uvim. It continues to be she'uvim. Unless, we said before, that keli, that sinor, that pipe was buried into the ground, was attached to the ground, and then made into a keli. In other words, you would have to make this keli after it's attached to the ground. You can't take a keli, which is already a keli, and then just put it on the ground. It would have to be kovoy ulebesoif chokeko. then it would be no problem whatsoever. But there are some opinions that hold that it doesn't necessarily have to be agabe karka, as long as it's not a keli that is going to passel it for being maim she'uvim. In other words, if it's like you said before, wood or something, it's flowing over some surface, even though it's not karka, as long as that surface will not render it maim she'uvim, it has no form of a keli, it's okay. It doesn't have to be karka. Some say that. Yeah.
Oh no. Now you've raised a new point.
Right.
Before you said the karka has to at least theoretically be able to absorb.
Yeah.
Right?
We're going to get back to that. Yeah.
Wood would fit that because it theoretically could absorb.
Right.
What about linoleum, which is not going to absorb, and is not a kli, and is not makabel?
Right. So that's why there are some shittas that hold it doesn't have to be karka. In other words, we mentioned so far the idea of karka. Karka fits in very well with the concept of hamshacha. Somehow it's mevatel the whole concept of maim she'uvim. It's as though it's coming from the ground. So it's like min hashamayim. But just for your information, there are some that hold that as long as that material is not going to pass through the water because of maim she'uvim, even if it's tolush, it's not connected to the ground, it's okay, no problem. Now, getting back to the concept that we said before about absorbing. The Yereim is the one that writes, it has to be karka that's re'uyo livloya. This is the shita that I mentioned earlier. It has to be grounded, but not just any ground. It has to be ground that can absorb the water. In other words, porous. Because then you say it's mizbatel agaf karka. And as though it's coming from the ground. And as we will see, the halacha l'maaseh Shuchan Aruch basically quotes the Ravid. All it says is agabe karka, or it's sinor shekovoy, that he attached to the ground. Ramo is the one that's going to be machma, is going to bring the Yereim. The question, however, today for us is as follows: what's the status of cement?
Cement will absorb.
Oh, so some say cement absorbs.
Well,
and some say...
Wait a minute. Cement will not absorb, but a concrete cinder block will absorb.
Well, okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah. Well,
cement is a paste.
Yeah, well, obviously. When we're talking about cement, the Achronim discuss this, and they say, well, cement absorbs, supposedly. There are some that say no. They're machmer. You cannot do it over cement because cement does not absorb. So the question is, well, wait a minute, are we having here a machloikas on the Metzias? Does it absorb or does it not absorb? And what's the answer? Very simple. It depends which grade of cement. There are some cements that absorb, and there are some that don't absorb as much. There's for sure some cements that absorb. I know for a fact.
Yes.
So that's it. That's what it would depend on. Is it absorbing or is it not? I'm curious as to why they were just machmer. I guess the chumrah is because once you say cement is okay, people will not differentiate,
So then we don't do this today. We hold machmer on this today?
No. So this is a question. In other words, if you're going to be using hamshacha, can you rely on the poskim that hold that cement is okay? And the answer is yes, because the cement for the most part absorbs. And that would have the same status as karka. Okay, so this is pretty much an introduction to what's going on over here. I guess all we need to do is look at the mechaber inside. Seif mem daled, en amayim she'uvim poisem esamikve begimu lugim mayim she'uvim will not pass the mikveh with 3 lugim at she'yiplu letoich hamikveh me'akli, until they actually fall into the mikveh directly from a kli. Aval im nigreru amayim she'uvim chutz lamikveh, but if they were drawn, or I should say flowed, these mayim she'uvim outside the boundary of the mikveh, nimshechu, they flowed the yordu, they fell into the mikveh, einam poisim mikveh, they will not pass of the mikveh. Ad sheyuyu mechzel mechze, and that's what we're talking about, half. But if you had the majority, as we said before, you have revia and hamshocha, harei mikveh kosher, the mikveh is kosher. So what we've learned so far about maim she'uvim, well, there are situations where even the maim she'uvim will not be such a big deal if they came about through Hamshacha, and there was a majority of Mayim sharing there to begin with. Ketzad. He gives an example. Mikveh sheyesh b'chof se'ah ashehu. So Mechaber says there's a mikveh that already has 20 se'ah plus a little bit more of Mayim ksherim. Ve'hoyo memale ve'shoyev chutz le'mikveh. And he was filling up, drawing water outside of the mikveh. And these waters that he drew, and the waters went, traveled, flowed, and fell eventually into the mikveh. See here the Mechaber says he doesn't differentiate whether they were flowing directly above the ground or betoch silon, in some sort of pipe. Which or similar to it. Similar to what? Similar to anything that would not pass of the mikveh. In other words, it's not a container of sorts that would pass of the mikveh. Then areu kosher. So the Mechaber says it doesn't have to be the ground. He holds that the ones that say it could also be a silon, as long as it's not that type of material or vessel that would pass of the mikveh otherwise. So if it's,
what does it mean otherwise?
Eventually we'll talk about it. Those halachas. In other words, what the requirements are actually for a silon. But suffices for now that it doesn't have to be the karka. The Mechaber just says hamshocha can happen through a silon, can happen through a pipe, and any other kind of or similar, I guess, artifact that is not from the dvorim shenam poisim esamikveh. Areu kosher. Even though you're completing it to 1,000 se'in. That Mechaber tells us the rule, the klal, that any she'uva that you brought about through hamshacha is kshera, as long as you started off with roiv mem se'om min hakosher. So that we do need. Now the Mechaber says you could have another scenario. You could have the chen gag on the roof. Shahoyel beroish on the top. You have 20 se'ah umasher, a little bit more. Megeshomim. Mile bekteifo v'nosan etoicho, and you put into it pochos michof of ma'im she'uvim. Shenimtza kol posol. So right now everything is posol. It's not in the mikveh. But what did you do after that? Posach hatzinor. He somehow removed the tap, removed the lid, removed the cover. And they all travel together to one place, and it's a mikveh kosher. In other words, even though you're mamshech the whole entire thing, but because to begin with you had roiv kosher, that's fine. That's completely acceptable. So the Shach explains, Shenimsa kol posol. Initially the whole thing is posol before you open up the cover. You're pouring that posol water directly into the mikveh. There's no hamshacha yet. Still, afterwards, afterwards you somehow opened up the tzino, it's kosher. So from that point on, they're traveling together, but so what? The majority is ma'im she'rim, then it's okay. So it's a different kind of a scenario, but it's still acceptable. The Ramah comes along and reminds us, wait a minute, don't forget, if what first came there was ma'im psulim, then you brought the ma'im she'rim, which is the majority, lo mehani, that would not help. That's the Beis Yosef that is medayik from the Rambam, that the Rambam would not accept that. When we accept Reviyah and Hamshacha is only if the Reviyah is there first, not if it came later. Sif Mem Hey, that discusses the shear, the distance that we need Hamshacha for. Shear Hamshacha Zu Eina Pochos Migimon Tfachim. The Mechaber says it has to be 3 Tfachim. So if each tefach is about 4 inches, give or take, this would be about a foot. Right. Sif Mem Vav. So here the Mechaber elaborates a little bit more about this tzinor. The hamshocha does not help unless it's al gabe the karka, the ground, or al gabe tzinor of the pipe, but shelo hoyol of shem kli betolush, when it was material, raw material, it did not have yet a name of a keli. אבל אם המשיך על גבי כלים, אפילו כלי גלולים וכיוצא בהם לא אבי המשוכו. Makes no difference what the material is, even if it's made out of galolim, out of the feces of animals. If that's what the kelim are made for, that would not be considered a hamshocha. Yeshoimrim, the Rama says, the ein hamshocha mo'eles ela davkal gavi karka haroi livloya. So that's the Yereim that we mentioned earlier. The Rama wants to say that we should be machmer, that we don't forget about sinor. Even if it's sinor that you will convey into the karka, it has to be karka. And not only karka, it has to be karka haroi livloya bo. But if you did the hamshocha on tile, porcelain, something that is not boleya, well, that's a question too, because maybe some of them are boleya. But something that's not porous, granite, I guess, right? On some flooring material that is not roy livloya, your example of linoleum.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, right? Anything that's not porous, v'chol shekain, the more so if it was al gab daf or kli, on some sort of tab, some sort of plank, or keli afal pi she'eno poisel mikveh, even though it does not pass the mikveh, it was just a plank, a daf, a tablet, but it was not a karka. Lo mehane.
It would have to be made
according to the Ramah.
material. It would have to be made of porous material, yeah?
Yes, exactly. So toiv lehachmer lechatchilot. The Ramah says it's toiv lehachmer. In other words, you're going to, obviously he says, there are enough shitas that hold that it's okay, but toiv lehachmer lechatchilot to consider the yereim, that you need not only karka, you need karka royu livloya.
Our plank would be porous though, no? Or could be.
Yeah.
It's made of wood.
Yeah, sure.
Why does he exclude a plank?
No, it's because it's not karka.
So for him, the porous thing must be...
As we will see later on, there is a difference between something that happens by itself, we'll see that later on, versus a situation where the human hand is involved by holding a plank.
So that's holding the plank.
Yeah. But here, if it's not holding, we said before that according to the Mechaber at least, it's not a problem.
But it seems that the Ramah, however, excludes the plank.
No, he should allow wooden plank.
Not really, no. If it's a surface, is not karka.
The
Ramah doesn't seem to exclude that. There are some that say you need karka.
No. But the Ramah would allow you a wooden plank because it's not finished, because the wood will absorb.
But exactly. But based on this porous thing, if the wood is not a keli, it's just not karka, but it's porous, then that would be okay.
The reason I was asking, because in the list of those things that he excluded, you also mentioned the plank. And the plank would normally be made of wood and should be porous, therefore. So that's why I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
What you called a plank or a tablet.
Right.
So that was, the Ramah seemed to be excluding that, the hatchila.
Right.
So I was wondering why he would exclude it if we say that a porous plank should be okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's talking about porous plank here.
Let me.
Yeah.
If you had a porous item.
Yeah. Right.
It's not a kli, but it's shaped U-shaped.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Sure.
So it's open at both ends.
So it cannot really hold water because it's open on both ends.
Basically, it's going to force the water to go where you want it to go.
Exactly. It's going to bring a little bit of pressure.
Pressure to go through.
Mm-hmm.
You could use that.
Yeah. Eventually, we'll talk about that. That's all kinds of pipes. How to use them. In what way is it possible? But here, as far as the Ramah is concerned, he's not talking about so much about a situation where you have something other than karka, that is a surface that is porous, because apparently it shouldn't be any different, the surface. But if he's talking about a keli of some sort, a daf or keli, that would not be a good idea.
So what would this stuff be?
It's, I guess, a material that you've made to be used as something in some sort of use. In the kitchen, a cutting board would be an example that has some use, but it's not a keli which would render it she'uvim. Neither is it a surface. Because let's say you have a wooden floor, I mean, not a ground, not cement, it's porous. You live in a cabin, right? I mean,
Right, so wooden floor should work.
it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, I don't think the Ramah says that would be an issue. He just says that the Yereim holds that it has to be karka haroyu livloya. So even though if it's not karka, I mean, it's just, it means...
Isn't that though the question?
It has to be, it's a surface. Karka doesn't really mean necessarily the ground.
But if he says karka haroyu livloa,
Right.
is he saying it doesn't have to be karka, but anything that's haroyu livloa? Or is he saying not every karka will work?
Well, no.
It's only a subset.
So we
of
did
karka.
say before the concept of karka, because karka is mevatel, it's like it's coming from the karka. So that's why there is a shita that says karka. But the Yereim says that it's not just karka, it has to be karka royu livloya, because
So that
if we
would be
want,
narrowing it down for
right, because that tells us that,
Or is he opening it up to...
that tells us what the advantage or benefit of the karka is.
But
It's not just because
it's haroyu livloa, he wouldn't accept.
He wouldn't accept, no.
So the question is he narrowing it down further by saying it's not just any karka, but dafka one that's haroyu livloa? Or is he extending the set by including anything that would be haroyu livloa, even if it's not karka? You can interpret it both ways.
Well, as long as it's a surface, that's why he adds those words. אבל אם המשיך על גב רצפת אבנים שאין לו לבלוע בו, that's no good. וכל שכן על גב דף או כלי, they're כלים. אף על פי שאינו פויסל המקווה, these things would not pass the mikveh. But we're talking about hamshacha now. Hamshacha, you want to make it kosher through hamshacha, they can't come about through kli. They would have to come about on the ground,
So
on the surface,
so it
not by way of a keli in the middle.
So
Yes,
it didn't passel the mikveh,
right.
and you had 20 to start with, 20
And a little extra, right.
and 20 plus.
Sure.
And you end up putting in 20 through a means that doesn't add, it's not hamshacha, but it doesn't passel. Right? It just extra water just happens to, for whatever reason. You said some water, if it flows,
Right.
it would add, but it wouldn't count, but it wouldn't pass. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, if you had more than 20 se'ok sherim,
Right.
then the rest can come through hamshacha.
Right, but the other water if the water flowed through something that doesn't count for hamshach,
Right.
some cake,
Then it wouldn't count.
it wouldn't count. So then when I need more water, am I only counting the new either hamshach or whatever against the 20 plus
So that's
or the
what,
total?
so that's what the Taz said, that you would have to throw out the whole thing if it's not exactly kosher.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It wouldn't be good. Yeah. All right. Mem Zayin is interesting. I think this is taken from the Rosh. Mikveh shenoveh b'nityabesh b'kayitz. Let's say you have a mikveh that the source of it is from some sort of spring, and it dried up in the summer. V'haya bor rachok mimenu k'tzat. There was a bore, another pit, that was some distance from this mikveh, and you went to this bore and filled it up with water she'uvim, the bore, milu mayim she'uvim, and then as a result of filling that bore, guess what happened? Nitmaleh ha-mikveh mitachat ha-karka. Somehow the water percolated all the way to the mikveh from this bore. Also mayim she'uvim. Ha-mikveh kosher ki'ilu hu novea. The mikveh now is kosher as though it would be noivea. So what does that mean? So the Shach says like this. Kosav abach, the hainu dafka leman de'omer le'el sif mem, that we said the mayan eino nifsal b'she'iva. Remember, there is such an opinion that a mayan would not be nifsal b'she'iva. But didon, according to us, the machmerina and hosam, that a mayan is also nifsal b'she'iva. Hu adin hocha. Therefore, he wants to say that here there's another reason of why this is kosher. Basically, the way it works is that when you fill that bore, you are prompting the waters that are still somehow hidden in the walls of the mikveh in that area to be energized, to come out. It's not that the whole mayan is dry. It's not like the whole thing, the source is dry. It is still there. There's still gidin, as the Shach explains. There's still veins of water there. So that there's still waters being connected to the original veins. And they, according to one explanation, are more than the water that you're adding, of course. Maybe I should just read it from the inside. If the majority of the waters where they're coming from is from where they emanate from. They have gidden veins all over. Underneath the ground. Even though they're drying up, they cannot on their own fill up the bear. The moisture is not completely gone. There's some water there, but they're little water, and they're not enough to fill the maloisa be'er. When you add mayim, when you add from the outside water, and then the waters come out on their own. So it turns out that what you've accomplished was that she'iva became Torah through Reviya and Hamshocha.
So he's saying that this pit.
Let me just add the second one. It's impossible that those veins should be without any water at all. They have this is the second terrace. They have a din of a mayan, even if it's a little bit of water. According to those who hold that mayan is not nifso b'sheiva. So you can rely on this terrace too in case you have a problem with the other terrace. He says you have to really rely on the first explanation, because the second one is based on the ones that hold that mayan is okay b'sheiva.
So, but he's saying that there has to be some water in the mikveh that starts out kosher.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But not much.
Right.
Does he require 3 tvachim, or can you have this?
Well, here you have more than 3 tvachim.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering. You have the mikveh.
If you have it right next to each other, you wouldn't need it. Yeah.
No. He's saying
because it's almost naturally happening. I guess so. Yeah.
You're filling this pit right next to your mikveh.
Yeah. It's like the guma of Rabbi Elyahu Kin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he said later on, even one who passes she'iva b'maya, afilu svira gamkin, he would hold she'iva sheimshechu kula psula. Even if you would hold that, afilu teimo the hocha ein roiv hamayim meikar nevia, even though the majority of the water is not from the nevia, the moed the hoch bekivan the ikar tartan. We have 2 benefits here, she'uva sheimshechu, and there's a mayan here. So he wants to say that hocha lekula amla, it would be kosher in this kind of a scenario. All right, Sif Mem Ches. One who wants to be mamshich water to a mikveh. This is what we discussed before several times. It cannot be done through something that is mekabel tuma. Like let's say rainwater. You want to be mamshich them to another place to make a mikveh somewhere else. So lo yochaz biyodoi daf, you should not hold in your hands a daf, like a tablet. V'yavirim olav, that it should somehow flow on top of it, because you want to direct it. So you cannot hold a daf, or something that is, anything that is mekabel tuma, to have the waters travel on it. Eleyaniach hadaf bekarka, put that daf on the ground. Yasir yoda, remove your hand, misham beterem yavro ma'imalo, before the waters travel over it. Same thing with siloin. V'chein siloin, Shel matechet, a pipe made out of metal. Also lehamshich bo mayim lemikveh shemikabel tuma. You can't have the waters flow over it into the mikveh because it's mekabel tuma. V'hu she'iyah mayim noiflim nehedyo midavar mekabel tuma l'toch mikveh. That's as long as the waters are flowing directly from the davar mekabel tuma directly into the mikveh. But let's say they're not going into it. Avalim noiflim al sfos, so they just are falling over the edge of it, bachutz, from the outside, v'nimshachim l'toicha, and they're going into the mikveh from it. Or shemechaber lepi asilon, or if he attaches to the mouth of this pipe that is made out of ever, lead, tzinor katana, a small pipe of eitz, of wood, or shel cheres, or earthenware, clay, shamay mekalchim mimeno lamikveh kosher, the waters are going from that part, from that material, into the mikveh, then it's kosher. But if this metal silon is already connected to the ground, if it's already part of the ground, then then if it's going directly into the mikveh, it's kosher. Once it's part of the ground, even if it's metal, if it's built into the ground, it's not going to be mekabel tumah. Why? Doesn't make a difference if it's underneath the ground or not. The fact that it's attached to the ground means that it's not mekabel tumah. And the last seif memtes is b'ameh dvorim amurim. When did we say the b'mamshich me geshomim be'almo? That what did we say until now when we're talking about amshocha with rainwater? If you're going to do a hamshocha directly from a mayon, a spring, or from another kosher mikveh, that you can even do through dobra mekabel tumah. You can connect, because you're starting off, all you're doing is connect. You're not doing hamshocha. You're connecting to a mayor, you're connecting to a mikveh kosher. That can be done through double mekabel tumah kosher. Why? The chashvinu lezeh mikveh shemamshich hamayim letoicho kilu mechuber lemayon or lemikveh shemamshich hamayim misham. It's as though it's disconnected. And once you consider something connected, then it's not a problem. It's like it's one thing. Obviously, there are some who don't want to make a differentiation. That's the Taz says that's the Rashba, but then the Beis Yosef v'svirle de lo hitiru b'mishnah lehamshich al yedei shel matechot ela keshasilon mechubar bekarka shu boto karka. In other words, metal was only allowed, he says, if it's connected to the ground. So there are some who are not going to differentiate, but lechora there is a difference between hamshacha and a chibur supposedly. Just to connect the two, maybe that would be permissible. And that's very important today too, when you're building, two mikvoos next to each other.
Is he saying that I have a mayan, I have a spring?
Right.
Right? And I can have a pipe connecting directly from that mayan to a mikveh half a mile away?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly it.
So long as it's connected to the ground.
Right. Well, that's what the Taz is saying.
That's what the Taz is saying.
Yeah. The Mechaber was just saying that hamshocha is a possibility if it meets the criteria, the requirements, when we're dealing with megashamim. But once you're dealing with being mamshich from a mayan directly or from another kosher mikveh, then perhaps it wouldn't be such a problem, even if you're doing it through the dover mekabel tumah. You already have a kosher source. It's kosher. It's not maim she'uvim that you're trying to make them kosher through hamshacha. See, that's the problem that we've had until now, that eludes us sometimes, this idea of, how could it help? Well, it helps as long as it's done in the right way. If you take away any of those conditions, then that's not going to be effective. If that hamshacha is going to be through a davar mekabel tumah, if that's not going to be done al gabi karka according to the Yore Deah, if it's not going to be done just right, and especially if you don't have the 20 plus kosher, then hamshacha cannot help you. We want to fix maim she'uvim. Here, the Mechaber says you don't have to fix anything. You're just connecting it. Except for, of course, the Rashba that would say that if you're using metal, that it would have to be connected to the ground because it would have to be bottled. Otherwise, there shouldn't be any difference between the two. But the Mechaber seems to be okay about it. And that's important to know. That's, a chibur. And a chibur is permissible, is acceptable if you're using the dover shebekabel tumah. Obviously, as we've said all along, you always want to do things the best way possible and avoid any rishon who's machmer, any shittas who are machmer, in order to make it acceptable to everybody. Okay, we'll stop here.
It's not acceptable to everybody. It has also
as best as possible.
If it's not,
if you can. So it's good to know the shittas, obviously, but if you can do it.
I think in places where you have a spring.
Yeah, you may need to. You may have to rely on that. But if you can, obviously, everybody's moided that you should make it as best as possible.